hands are. You've got big hands.
It was fine, right? They caught me. All right. He's good, right? He's just good. Oh, do me a favor. Flip that screen around towards me.
That's good. Then you can see it.
There we go. Kick it up a little.
Check yourself.
A little more. Oh, perfect. That's fine. Flip it for him, too, so they can see kind of where. You don't want to. Do you want to see yourself or no?
I want to see myself.
All right.
Sure. No.
All right, dude.
No.
You gotta hold up that
It's
close,
progress.
that flip it
Wow. Okay. No, I look good. I look good. I'm never looking at it again. When you talk, like, do you talk into the camera and then you edit it?
No, we look at each
like,
other.
Hey guys. Yeah. It's offset.
Yeah,
it's good
right.
though how it's offset like that.
All right.
Yo,
We're
what's up?
going, dude. We're going.
We're going?
Are you waiting for someone?
No.
Where's your
I'm just-
lady? It's Valentine's Day,
She's
bro.
coming in. Actually, so this is my last stop, and I got to go to LAX and sit in that midday traffic.
Where does she live?
She lives in Cabo, so I actually met her in
Oh,
Cabo.
shit.
Yeah,
No
it's
way,
great.
dude.
So she lives in Cabo. She's from France. She moved to Cabo like 8 years ago, and she actually has like a really good business down there, like a boutique. It's called Anasadora. It's at the Flora Farms complex down there in Cabo San Lucas. So she does really cool, like kind of Mexican, French inspired, like
Does she speak Spanish and French?
she's like trilingual. So
Oh, man.
she does fluent in English, French, and Spanish. She's amazing. I'm really fortunate. But she writes, and we have a lot in common, kind of on the I guess intellectual side. So it's
I'm happy, man. You looked happy. That's why I messaged you.
It's
I'm like,
nice.
you look pretty fucking happy, dude.
yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's like it's hard, and I've always felt like it's hard in the fishing industry to meet people, right? Because you spend a lot of time on the water, and it's a very isolating sport.
Yeah.
So you're with the same crew of guys several days a week, or peak season, you're out there from before dawn till dusk, and it's not like you get off like a tuna trip and go to like a bar and try to meet somebody. It's like you're usually pretty shot. So I feel like there's always like a small window every season where you can like date, like actually date and have a shot to try to establish something, and that's like that fall through winter.
Yeah.
And then you hope that if you establish something, you can at least they understand your lifestyle and your responsibilities.
Which
and
is,
you can carry
that's
it
got to
through.
be really hard, too, because you're gone a lot fishing.
Well, she's a professional as well, so she has her
Yeah.
responsibilities. And I think it's nice as you get older and people become a little bit more grounded emotionally with relationships. I found that it becomes easier, right? Because people's priorities change. People start to think more about like realistically, if you want to have like a strong family unit, you have to work, you have to make a living, right? This is like a real thing. So I think there's a reward and there's an incentive to working hard in relationships because you can provide more substance, right?
Yeah.
Stability, financial independence. You can actually, provide a good life and a good lifestyle for you and your partner, as you get older. So I think that's important.
You sound happy, dude. I'm happy.
I'm doing really well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dick. I appreciate that.
How was your tournament? So before the last podcast we kind of did, you were leaving.
We were just about to leave, so we were kind of wrapping up. The end of our season, and we ended the season strong. It was a really great year. So I'll give you kind of the run through of what we've been doing since October all the way through to now, which is February. So we left like a week after. We made it to Cabo in we made it from Huntington Harbor to Mag Bay to Santa Maria Bay. We made it in 30 hours. So we left Huntington at like 2 o'clock. We made it to Ensenada by like 7, I think around 7. We topped off fuel in Ensenada, and then we pushed on all the way down to Mag, and we never stopped. We went straight to Mag on our reserves, on our bladders. So we made it to we made it to Mag, Santa Maria, which is just outside and north of Mag Bay. We made it down there in 30 hours.
Okay.
And then we took on a little bit of fuel in San Carlos the next day, and then we punched down to Cabo in 5-6 hours. So it was like a 2-day trip. It was nice. The weather was good. You're going downhill. But we brought almost 800 gallons of fuel above deck, which is wild, on a boat like that.
Yeah.
We have 760 or whatever below deck, and then we put a 500 in the front and two 150s in the back, and that's definitely the heaviest the boat's ever been.
Yeah.
That's a lot of weight for a 45-foot boat, but you're burning it steadily, so you're only losing weight as you go on. You just had to make it through that first night, but it was fun. It's every time you do that trip, I think that trip's like, it's fun. There's definitely a reward at the end of the rainbow, right? So you know that every mile you go, it's getting a little warmer. You're getting a little closer to, that season that we look forward to all year, which is Cabo. You're going downhill, so it's usually easier from a running perspective. In the fishing, you have a lot to look forward to, right? So you hit the ridge and you hit, that lower part of the Baja Peninsula, and you get into some really good fishing that time of year. So.
Did you guys stop and fish on the way at all?
A little bit, but our fuel restrictions and our time restrictions, we kind of wanted to get where we wanted to get.
Yeah.
But we fished wahoo a little bit on the ridge. We caught wahoo. We fished like one afternoon, but a lot of times we'll structure it so that we get to fish a couple days, But on the center console, you just 2 or 3 days in a row in that boat, and you're definitely trying to get off it, right? It's not really set up for multi-day fishing excursions. It's a day boat.
Yeah.
So. That was nice. So we got to Cabo, and usually we try to start pre-fishing a little bit. We did not fish the first event. There's 4. Let's see. There's the Los Cabos billfish. There's the little Bisbees, the Bisbees offshore, the big Bisbees, and then we fished 2 tuna tournaments. We fished the Pelagic Rockstar tuna tournament, and we fished the Western Outdoor News Los Cabos tuna jackpot. So I think 5 tournaments that we fished.
How'd you place in all those?
So we did not fish the first tournament this year, which is the Los Cabos. So we didn't fish that. We kind of used that opportunity to build out our gear and get ready, and just kind of prep for the Bisbee circuit. We fished the little Bisbees, and we got a bite. We hooked a big fish. We hooked I think a black. Never saw it, but it was the right bite. It was the right fish. We had it on for about 5 or 10 minutes, and it chewed through on us, and we lost it. We broke it off.
Yeah.
Which happens. It's kind of the nature of the game. But I think that was a real one. We wanted that one. Probably would have been a qualifier if it was a billfish. And you move on. That's how it is. And then we reset. We fished the Bisbees. And
you did pretty well on that,
right?
right?
Yeah, we did. We got bit on the second day. We caught a 400. What is it? I think it was 466, 446.
Dude.
466, I believe. So it's funny. We get a good fish. We hook a fish on day 2, black marlin, a bait fish. We kill that fish pretty quick. We ended up tying day 1's black marlin. Wild hooker caught a fish. I think it was 466. It's the same size fish, which is crazy to tie somebody, and they actually don't do ounces in the Bisbees.
Yeah.
And the way they determine ties in the overalls or on a daily, but in our case it was the overalls because they caught their fish on day 1, and we got our fish on day 2. Is based on time, and they caught their fish first, so we got bumped down a place in the overalls on a tied fish simply based on time, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Very rare, doesn't happen often. They probably should have ounces, to base a tournament with that much money. I mean, right? I mean, if you wasn't as consequential.
I get it.
If it would have been the same day and we would have lost on time for $1 million, it would have been devastating, right?
Yeah.
But we lost on time in the overalls, which is far less consequential because the money's all wrapped up in the dailies in these tournaments. So it's all about the dailies. It's like a roughly $1 million daily.
Wow.
And then in the overalls, you're looking at like $10,000, $12,000, $15,000.
Yeah.
So it's not really wrapped up in the overalls. But yeah, we held on day 2. We ended up taking 4th place. We had our shot at a daily. Somebody ended up beating us on day 2 with I think like a 20 or 30 pound heavier fish, which is actually the team that beat us, a team called True Grit, was actually the team that we beat last year for $3 million. So it kind of comes full circle. It's funny how that works. It's just
it's a game of pounds, like right?
It's a game of pounds.
Yeah.
And like all you can do as an operation is get a bite and connect and get the job done, and then luck has to kind of come into effect to win a daily, and you hope it holds on. A 400 plus pound fish is generally a really good fish, and it puts you in contention. It's a 300 pound minimum, right, to weigh a fish. So you have like a 350, a 320, a 340. You would assume that on a good year, somebody's probably going to kill one a little bit bigger. A 400 pound fish is a little bit safer. I'd say with a 400 pound fish, you have kind of a 50% chance of taking a daily, right? So, if you're lucky, you're lucky, and it is what it is, as I've said in the past. I mean, the future's kind of already written. You catch your fish, and if it holds, there's really nothing you can do about it. You know, you can't really control the outlook or the output of other boats. You can only, and that's the thing about competitive sport fishing, is you can really only control what happens on your side, right? You're competing directly, but indirectly at the same time. You are competing against other boats, but in an indirect manner, right?
Yeah.
So if another boat catches a bigger fish, you can't, go over there and cut their fish off. There's really very few defensive maneuvers that you can do in fishing, right?
Yeah.
You can't really fish defensively all that well. So, it is what it is. But we had a great tournament, and we have a fifth, a fourth, and a first in the last 3 years fishing the Bisbees Black and Blue, which is the biggest fishing tournament, in the world, and that's far greater than anything I could ever have hoped to accomplish within that circuit, within that series, within that event. So, I feel super fortunate to just weigh a qualifier and stand on the podium.
That's like one of the biggest tournaments right ever.
Well, it's interesting because the turnout's really good. It's established itself as an institution. It's a big institution. So, there's a lot of residual competition. People come back every year, and you have the perpetual competitor. They've already invested 20 years into it, and they're going to invest 40 because, 1 year they hope to get lucky and connect. But, for us, every year I go down there, I'm still in a learning phase with Cabo, right? And we have like a 1 month period that we fish billfish every year. And I always kind of feel like I'm a skiff fisherman at heart. I'm a Southern California fisherman at heart who gets to try the Cabo competitive billfish circuit, for 1 month of the year. So we really get to cram our pre-fishing and our learning curve into about 2 weeks every year. Maybe a week of pre-fishing.
Yeah.
So I try to approach that with a Southern California mentality and try to create opportunities based off the skill sets that we develop here in Southern California, and not necessarily the approach that somebody who's coming up from Costa Rica or somebody who's coming from an East Coast bill fishery or a Kona bill fishery, an Australia bill fishery is going to have. My outlook on fishing is firmly grounded in a Southern California outlook, and I feel like that's created a good opportunity for us down there.
You carve your own way.
You just
kind of
like,
what I'm saying, and you do what feels right. It seems like you have your plan, you do it. If it didn't fucking work, then that's what it is. What it is. You know what I'm
absolutely.
saying?
And there's people I don't really have because of my professional restrictions. I don't really have the means to say go to Kona and look at lures for 2 months. That's not in my schedule.
So dudes are doing that, though.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people who get to travel a little bit more than I do to get to develop certain sides of the bill fishery and
you're not going to put that against them, because if they have the funds to do it, it's like, well, then go ahead.
The thing is, that's going to create an outlook that's very much grounded in their developmental grounds, right? So their approach is going to be different and their outlook's going to be different. So my output's going to be derived from my Southern California outlook, right?
Yes.
And I think it transplants fairly well. The thing is, you don't need to get 30 bites. You don't need to get 10 bites. You don't need to get 2 bites. You need to get 1 bite. And that's always my approach with competitive fishing, is understanding that if you do something for 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 days and you're doing it competently and you're doing it with confidence and you believe in your program and you understand the playing field and you understand the nature of that 1 bite, I believe you can get that 1 bite when you protract a season out over 3 or 4 tournaments. You get that 1 bite over the course of like those 3 or 4 tournaments, and it's going to be a profitable bite, right? If you get fortunate and you kill that fish and everybody else is not as fortunate as you.
Yeah.
So you need 1 or 2 bites over the course of a season to make your season.
Yeah.
And I like that 1 bite fishery because I believe that my outlook allows me to stretch it out over 9 days. I believe that, I can fish with confidence over that period and believe with conviction that the bite is inevitable, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it's electronics fishing. A lot of it's like analyzing water. It's analyzing the up and down. It's analyzing bait. It's analyzing a lot of things that we already do a lot up here. It transplants really well. So we can get a black marlin bite in Cabo San Lucas, in a tournament if we're given 9 days to try.
Yeah,
usually.
Yeah.
I hope. We'll see. Maybe hopefully next year. One of these years it won't happen. One of these years we'll miss.
That's the game plan, though, right? I mean, that's kind of what you're doing. What's the plan for this year? Are you still just doing the same thing, Captain, the Stella June?
Yeah, we're still in the Stella June program. We're just going to start fishing pretty soon here. It's February, so, we start looking around right about now, and usually we get that winter opportunity. Maybe we already have.
Yeah.
So we'll start fishing pretty soon. We're just doing boat work, kind of putting the program back together. We take our couple months off here. I got the Stella June. I brought her back up. Once we finished the tournament circuit down there, And we actually ended the circuit. We had a nice finish in the Los Cabos Tuna Jackpot. We took third overall. We won a daily there, or won the 20K daily. And that was our last little fishing venture down in Cabo for the season. And then I brought the boat back up in December. So we've had it back up in Huntington here. And we're just doing boat work on the Contender, on the Stella June, on my boat, the Maritime Skiff, and just putting the program back together. And we'll start fishing pretty soon. And I think I'll probably be primarily within that program. I might run some charters for fun. I'm kind of thinking about just putting a trip or two on the books, every week just to supplement what I do already, but mostly just because I like to fish.
Yeah.
And, I do like to share fishing, and I do like to take people fishing sometimes, and I've put that on the back burner a little bit the last couple seasons. But I think it would be fun to maybe run a handful of trips, this year, maybe on the Maritime, or maybe on some of the other boats that kind of I have within my, overall program. But yeah, we're just kind of starting that traditional Southern California season where we fish some sea bass and some island stuff in the spring. Maybe look at some of that winter spring tuna stuff. Usually around April, May, June, we start to see better opportunity down in San Diego. You start to see the bluefin push. That's consistent. You start to see the yellowtail push. So we'll fish that for a couple months, and then we'll go into our pretty traditional island program. Or I'd say, the Clemente program, as you work that fish up the beach, through June and July, and then that stuff usually, spends the later part of the summer, somewhere in the vicinity of Clemente. So we'll fish out of Huntington, throughout the mid and late summer, and then hopefully we'll get right back down to Cabo and give that another shot.
Yeah.
It's so nice right now. I'll tell you, Nick. And a lot of people are going to come on this program and harp about this, and I'm going to harp about it, but we really do live in extraordinary times where the fishing season is long, it's diverse, and it's very well-rounded, right? So you can pick up these species pretty early in the season and walk with them for pretty extended periods and have a lot of opportunity throughout the whole scope of their migratory or movement cycle, right?
Yeah.
So you can play with bluefin from right about when it hits that Ensenada block until it gets to Clemente, and then it starts to push back down the beach, in the late summer, early winter as well.
Yeah.
And it's so fantastic that you can basically stretch a February, March, all the way to December, even January, bluefin season. There's no downtime anymore.
Yeah.
And then, alongside that, you have the yellowtail fishing, which is, usually really fantastic. If you look at it over the course of its movement from where we pick it up down the beach, I guess Ensenada as well. And as you follow it up into the pile, you follow it up the beach and you follow it to the Nados, you follow it offshore, shows up at the Northern Islands, and it gives you good opportunity all the way through the fall up there.
Yeah.
And then now we have the sword fishing, which we actually did a little bit of in December, and we caught a few fish.
Yeah.
We caught 3 fish in a week in December.
That's good.
We had another one to the boat, and now you have this really nice late season opportunity where people are getting a little burnt out perhaps on the bluefin fishing. You've been doing it for 4 or 5 months already.
Yeah.
And now you have this really nice fall into early winter, November, December fishery that's accessible, close to home, and it's a swordfish, a wonderful fish. The scope of the fishery right now is giant, and it's consistent, and it's such a strong economic driver for people who work on the professional side.
Yeah.
A leisure driver for people who just go do it, for fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible, Nick. Really fantastic.
Yeah, dude. It sounds... You're getting me ready to go fish, man. I'm ready.
Well,
you know what I got to get this year is I got to get my fucking yellowtail.
Yeah. Well, and I think yellowtail fishing, where you are fishing up north, you're going to see really good opportunity May, June, July, August, September, November, October.
I'd like to take my boat out. I'm sure I can, and try to do it. I want a Seth Nicewanger. I fish with him.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like, we can probably get it out of your boat. He's like,
absolutely.
So that's the goal this year. But let's talk about, you have any sponsors you want to talk about? Rod?
I have a lot of supporters, and I look at sponsorship. I'll tell you something about sponsorship, Nick. I think that in fishing, I think sponsors perhaps within the fishing industry, they've kind of figured out that people are willing to kind of sell their soul for a very small dollar. And I think you experience this too with your program when you're trying to build out sponsorship. For example, I think that your program right now is a cultural driver within the sport fishing industry. I think what you're doing right now carries immense value and should be valued accordingly.
Appreciate that. I appreciate that.
You're here and you're giving voice to the voiceless, right? And we were talking before we went on about the Alan Watson program that you did recently.
Yeah.
How many people have heard Alan Watson talk? It's a very
well, now they fucking hurt a lot of them.
but not a lot of people, right? So your program has this great value, and I think that you're picking up sponsors and support accordingly.
Appreciate that.
Right now, sponsorship is not something that I prioritize within my individual program. I have benefactors, people who allow me to do what I do. My boss, Ivan, the Jungle Boys program. Ivan allows me to pursue my wildest hopes and dreams within the fishing realm. He is a sponsor in a sense. I work for him. But that is a practical, real-world sponsor. That is somebody who, for all essential purposes, is a sponsor, but I provide a service in return.
Yes.
I don't value, or I don't put a strong emphasis on like the more, product-based sponsorships right now, because I'm okay supporting people. I'm okay spending money. I'm okay actually supporting the tackle side of the scene.
Yeah.
But also, it's like, hey, if you want to sponsor me, like, make my life easier, right? I work on the water every day. If you're not willing to write a check,
I get it.
It's almost like I don't really prioritize sponsorship unless you're going to actually make my quality of life noticeably better. And I think a lot of people have set a standard within the fishing industry where they'll work for very little, and companies know that it's like, well, all we got to do is give them a hat or give them 1 or 2 rods that our overall cost is like $200 to make, and they've sold our soul to us forever. And I think that, as an adult when I was young, I really bought into that. And it was like, how many hashtags can you put after your post? These are my sponsors, and my sponsors bring me legitimacy. But I don't rely on sponsorship as a means to bring me legitimacy, so therefore its value is much lower to me. It's not something that I need to like say, oh, I'm a big deal because I have a bunch of sponsors anymore. It's like, how many sponsors can actually improve my quality of life, And until I feel like there's people who actually allow me to live better, I'm on the water every day. How can you make my life better? How can you allow me to squirrel some money away in the slow parts of the season? How can you help me pay for my engine services? If you can't help me with it's not really sponsorship.
That's a good point of view too, because I feel like you have a valid point, and I feel like you're putting your foot down.
Well, it's not.
I'm not putting your foot down, but you're almost saying like, I'd rather just buy the shit, and I'm fine doing that, and I don't want to pay for anything. It's fine,
Well, it's like, what are you worth?
Yeah.
What are you worth? You're worth something. You're connecting with a lot of people. You have value. This is value, but it's like, but you don't need hats. You need something that's going to make your quality of life better. You're spending a lot of time.
Oh, I agree.
It's quality of life, Like, as an adult, I work for a living. I make pretty good money doing what I do. Like, if I want to, pay for some stuff, I can pay for some stuff. I don't really need, like, the small ticket stuff as much. And I think there's plenty of people who, as they're coming up, like, oh, it's a good exchange, right? It's a good exchange. I represent you. You're going to get your packages of swim baits, your packages of lures and your hats, and that's a good exchange for a lot of people on their developmental journey, right? It's a good exchange. It is making their life easier at the time. But now as like an adult, it's like if I'm going to be, I don't want to be somebody who's just chronically selling. I don't want to sell people things unless I A, believe in it with absolute conviction, or B, the person is noticeably making my quality of life better to the point where it's a fair exchange. I believe integrity is important, and I guess the other thing with sponsorships is it's like, I only want to represent something that I absolutely believe in, right? I'm not going to like rep a lure company if I think there's like a lure company that's probably a little better for the application, because then I'm being disingenuous.
Yes.
And all you really have is honesty and the truth. That's the only thing that you have, like, inherently, and if you give that away, I think you've lost your legitimacy a little bit. And I
feel like you've given a good outlook on it, because you've been around for how long now doing this? You were sponsored, so it's cool to hear your point of view, because I feel like your fishing age is pretty old because you've been around it for a while.
I started very young.
And it's a good point of view, because you kind of said, hey, when I was young, I was sponsored by so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so, And now I'm kind of like, you know what? I don't need to be sponsored. Fuck it. I'm done, And that's cool, man.
Well, I'll tell you some people. Let me list off some people. I don't necessarily consider them sponsors, but I consider these people who support our program, right? And it's different. These are not, like, for example, let me think about this for a sec. Let me just think. Like Seeker rods. We went to Seeker rods this year, and we built over 100 rods for the Stella June, right? I got to walk in there. I'm sure they took good care of us on the financial side, but we got to sit down and we got to work with their team to create a really good product, all right? Would I consider that an on-paper sponsorship? Not necessarily. It's not like I'm getting a check every month. I've never asked them for a free rod for my own personal arsenal, right? But they've supported us, so they deserve credit for the support they provided us, Like Sea Hunter boats. they built us a great boat. I have a direct line to their team. They help us out. Yamaha Outboards. When we have technical things, we can count that Yamaha will, partially because we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars with them, but also because they recognize they will send us things. They're a supporter, right?
I love how truthful you are, Evan.
I mean, these are people. It's like
you're dropping knowledge bombs of truth.
If it was a NASCAR thing, all right. How much do you think, like, if you're like, and it's an unfair comparison because like NASCAR's huge, but if you were to wrap a NASCAR car, how much does that cost that company here? Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah,
millions of dollars.
Yes.
So if you were to scale that down and you look at the overall viewership in NASCAR, to millions of people, but if you scale that down appropriately, right? So say you have 20,000 listeners, just a theoretical number. So what percent, like, there's still a dollar value that can be assigned to those 20,000 people, right? And I think that can be said for myself, that can be said for you, that can be said for anybody within the sport fishing realm. Like, if I have 20,000 followers on Instagram and it's an engaged group, it's not fake followers. These are not people I paid for. These are real live people with pretty good engagement, and I can show good engagement. What is the value of 20,000 engaged people from a dollar amount, right? And realistically, the only thing that's going to drive me in a sponsorship manner is dollars, because I'm an adult and I need money more than anything else. That's just the truth.
I get it.
You know?
Yeah.
You got bills. I have bills, you know? I'm not a trust fund kid. I have to pay for my life, you know?
Yeah, no.
So it's like, I need to make money. So it's like, there's a dollar amount to it. It's like Pelagic. Pelagic supports me. You know, I get a lot of free clothes. They do a good job. I wear their clothes. I take photos with their clothes. I give them some shout outs because they support me. They give me a lot of clothes, you know, that I can wear on the water. It's cool, you know? These are supporters. And I hope that within the fishing realm, I hope that companies would place a greater emphasis on the good work that's done, you know, amongst people in the industry. But I think that when people are willing to do a lot for a lot less, it kind of cheapens the overall, you know, picture a little bit, because it's like, well, if you won't do it, somebody else will do it for free, you know? People sell their souls for very, very, very little.
We could go deep on this, and I mean, I have some questions, but we're going to do another podcast. We're going to give you guys a good one soon with Evan, and we'll do another Q&A because I know some guys got screwed over. We got really busy and had to readjust some stuff, so I'm going to tell Evan, thank you for coming on, dude. Thank you for you have been a big building block to the podcast, because you came on. I think you were one of the first captains, bigger captains that came on, and you opened up on your story the first thing, and I really appreciate that. I'm going to tell you right now.
Well, let me can I say one more quick thing?
Go ahead.
Just one more quick thing.
Yeah.
About the companies, because I don't want to sound like I'm being unappreciative for the sport I've done. Right? I think that a lot of brands within the fishing industry do a lot for people who are stepping along the journey as far as exposure goes.
Yes.
And I think that's really nice. Like, if you're somebody who's trying to build within the industry and you have a partner, maybe on the tackle side, maybe on the clothing side, who's willing to share your photos, who's willing to kind of promote you and build you up, I think that does a lot to give you exposure, to give you opportunities. Like, right now I'm very developed in my professional journey. Like, I'm further along the road, right? But a lot of the opportunities that I've had would not have happened if I hadn't received, you know, kind of specific generalized support at certain points in the last 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Just because right now my emphasis is not so much on the sponsorship side of the equation does not mean that there hasn't been times in my career where it's been really helpful and important. And it doesn't mean that maybe in a year I don't, you know, take on like a good deal or a good program with a company that wants to be involved with me. You know what I mean? Just right now, my top priority, my top professional priority isn't necessarily to brands as much as it is to individuals. And I think people like my boss Ivan, people like a lot of the people in my code group, who I think you know, deserve the most amount of attention and output, I guess, if that makes sense. You know, it's more the people in the industry that I care about as opposed to the brands. Yeah, because it's relationships. You know,
I think I agree with you 100%.
So
that you find those.
I don't want to sound ungrateful for the people.
No, I don't think you came off that way. You just kind of said, hey. You have a outlook on how you want to promote yourself. Yeah, that's great.
I mean, it's fishing first.
There you go, dude.
This is a sport where my biggest emphasis is on ethical output, legitimacy. I'm trying to do things correctly, truthful, honesty. Don't lie, don't cheat. Do things with honesty and integrity. There is no substitute for hard work, right? Like, absolutely, you can't fake it in this industry. Yeah, like. And people will try to delegitimize so many things, and a lot of it is just an extension of, like, kind of the popularity side of fishing, like whether or not you prescribe to a certain outlook and a certain way you dress and a certain way you speak and a way you talk, and do you have the lingo down pat? Like, real recognizes real. I know who I see on the water every day. I know who's around me. There's no substitute for legitimacy. It's sponsorships and attention on social media does not bring you legitimacy. Hard work brings you legitimacy. You cannot fake it on the big stage. There's only one way to do it, and that's by putting in time and effort. And it's something that I believed growing up. It's something that I believe today. And if there's one thing for people who are trying to go on that journey now, if you want to be somewhere in 10 years in this industry, then be ready to spend 10 years of your life fully committed to the sport. A lot of times it's going to be uncomfortable. It is not easy.
Yeah.
Nothing in the fishing industry is easy. It's not easy. It's hard. It's going to be a huge time commitment. It's going to be a personal commitment. And no matter how many hashtags you put behind your posts, that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you want to be able to stand behind every one of your accomplishments and feel like you did it right.
Yeah.
You put in your time. You earned this. You didn't lie. You didn't cheat. You have legitimacy. People know. People see it.
Okay, you in another knowledge bomb. As usual, man. You're dropping them.
So I save them for you, Nick.
Hey, thank you again, Evan. I really appreciate it. We're going to do a full one with Evan. Maybe, it'd be cool is to do a roundtable. I know there's a couple of guys we could get together and do like an offshore kind of you guys all break down a bait. Break down something, do a Q&A. It'll be fun. Again, thanks for helping build this podcast. You've been a big part of it, and I appreciate it, man.
Hey, I'm a huge supporter of the podcast. We're here at the PCS show right now. The booth looks really good, man. But
I appreciate it, man.
Thank you for everything you do. Like I've said before, I think that the cultural contribution that you're making to the sport of fishing right now is actually pretty substantial. And I think that the things that get talked about here, the stuff lasts forever.
Yeah.
And I hope that it's something that people can engage with and be inspired by and learn through, perpetually for many years to come. So
thanks.
You're
appreciate
capturing a very important moment in time in California sport fishing. If you look at the grand cycles we've been through, if you look at the overall scene, I think that we're looking at some very, very important years in sport fishing where a lot of things that will probably be around for a really long time are being established and developed. And, maybe in 20, 30 years, people look back and be able to capture a really, really monumental time in Southern California sport fishing history. So thank you for everything you do.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening.